Do you think that you have proven telepathy from a scientific perspective? Have you gone that far, or is it something that's ethereal and it can't ever really be shown through that methodology?
Oh, yes, it can be investigated scientifically, and I think the evidence is already very strong. And if you look with scientific experiments, you do statistical analyses, and the statistical evidence for telepathy is much greater than the evidence for the Higgs boson, which is, after all, a pretty ethereal object. You don't ever see a Higgs boson. All you do is see sort of outputs from particle tracks of elusive particles in records from atom smashers, like the Large Hadron Collider. You don't actually see one, you don't actually get one and hold it in your hand. And yet these things are taken enormously seriously in science. And so is dark matter and dark energy. They make up 96% of reality, and no one has a clue what they are. And most scientists take them seriously. And many scientists take seriously the idea of hundreds of millions of parallel universes that no one's ever observed and for which there's not a shred of evidence. So it's not as if scientists demand things you can hold in a kind of common sense way. Nowadays, modern physics has dissolved reality into virtual realities and invisible dimensions and parallel universes and quantum processes that no one really understands and elusive particles that exist only as momentary traces or whispers of their presence that are known only in terms of statistical probabilities. Science has moved on a long way from kind of 19th century steam engine-based science. Modern physics is almost entirely about esoteric phenomena that hardly anyone can understand, with extra dimensions and so on. Telepathy is much, much more real than that. I mean, it's much more easy to test. And in our telephone telepathy tests, for example, we have tests in which the subject names 4 people they might be telepathic with, close friends or family members. They sit at home with a landline telephone, no caller ID display. We film them to make sure they're not getting other phone calls or emails. We pick one of the 4 callers at random, ring them up and ask them to call the subject. They do. The phone rings. They know it's one of these 4 people. They have to guess which of those people before they answer it. I think it's John. They pick it up. Hello, John. You're right or you're wrong. By chance, you'd be right one time in 4, 25%. In these tests, they were right about 45% of the time. And it's hugely significant statistically. This has been replicated in universities in Europe. I now have an automated version of the test working on mobile phones that anyone can try for themselves. I think the evidence is pretty strong. 80% of people have had this experience. It's very familiar to lots of people. The only experiments that have been done to test it have shown that this seems to be a statistical reality. It's more significant than the Higgs boson. You know, anyone can do the tests for themselves. These large-scale tests are giving positive results. I think this is fairly good evidence. The skeptics who are opposed to this don't have any evidence at all. All they have is their prejudices. And they're basically hardcore materialists who are ideologically committed to a worldview which I think is completely incoherent. So it's kind of hysterical denial of phenomena which, in fact, can be investigated scientifically, and if they exist, don't destroy science, they enlarge science. It's much worse for science to be in a position of denialism, pretending things don't exist that do exist, rather than expanding and having a larger, more comprehensive and more rational scientific view of reality.